Welcome to episode 12 of the PDS podcast. In today's episode, we'll be chatting with our guest all about the Northern Tornadoes Project, storm chasing, severe weather reporting, and more. But before we get started, I just want to take a moment to thank our sponsor for today's episode, Miracle Dent Repair. We'll hear a little bit more about them later in the show. Also, if you're watching us live right now, just remember that this is the raw and uncut version of the podcast, which means you may see or hear some things that don't make it into the final episode. Also, during the break, you will have an opportunity to ask today's guests some questions of your own. So please send them to us in the comments and sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Our special guest for today is David Sills. David is a Canadian severe storms guru and the executive director of Western University's Northern Tornadoes Project. Welcome to the show, David. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, as I just mentioned, you're part of the Northern Tornadoes Project, which was founded back in 2017. So, give me your elevator pitch about what the NTP is.
Sure. Now, the aim of the project is to detect, assess, and document every tornado that occurs across Canada. And, that's a big challenge given the size of the country. So we're always working on improving our methods for doing that. But, that's the mission. And, oh, geez. Hang on a second. I don't know what I just did.
Well, we can still see you at least.
Yeah? Wish I could see you. Okay. I'll just keep talking. I don't know what happened there. So, we found that in the past, tornadoes were known, especially in populated areas. But then as soon as you get away from populated areas, the number of reports dries up and their knowledge about tornadoes in general dries up. So the whole point of this project was to try to figure out where tornadoes are occurring outside of populated areas and then get a really true sense of what the climatology of tornadoes is in Canada.
Cool.
Awesome.
No, I thought you were froze. Sorry, man.
Oh, no. I thought you were froze. That was kind of weird.
Yeah, I can see you again. Great. Locked myself out somehow.
So, is the data you get with NTP public facing?
Yeah, we have an open data portal. So we're at Western University, and we have a libraries group at the university, like every university library does. And they were looking for a digital project, the digital library concept of the future. And really thought that this might be the thing that they could really experiment with and get into that space with. And so they've dedicated quite a few resources to helping us get all of our data online, have our map dashboard of all of the tornado locations. And we're constantly working with them on improving public access to the data, how we can collect the data in the field and bring it straight into the database and so on. So it's been great working with the Western Libraries people.
Awesome. So if somebody wanted to take a look at that data, where would they go for that?
Sure. The website's pretty easy. It's UWO, University of Western Ontario, .ca/NTP. And that's our webpage. And then from there, the tornado world is your oyster.
Awesome.
What methods do you guys use to detect the let me start over with that. You can cut that part out. This is why it's raw. So what methods are used to detect tornado damage paths, especially in the rural or remote areas?
Yeah. Well, initially, the most important things are radar and social media. We need the radar to know where the severe storms are and where a tornado may potentially have occurred. So we map out all of the important storm tracks so we know where to look for damage. But at the same time, we're getting reports in through social media. One of our partners is Instant Weather, and they've got hundreds of thousands of people across Canada that are reporting what they're seeing, and we get get copies of that, so we're kept in the loop in real time on what's happening, and so we start to build up this picture of where damage may have occurred and how intense it might be. If it's in a public area, then obviously you're seeing lots of video, and sometimes you don't need to even confirm that a tornado actually happened. It's very clear from the photo or
You
from
can
the
see it.
video. Yeah, the tornado is happening. But in other cases, you might just get the occasional report, hey, I had a bunch of trees down that, that wasn't there last week. And that just might be the clue to look in that spot. And then, we've got high resolution satellite imagery we get from planet.com. It's global high resolution daily satellite imagery. So we can zoom in on that area and look at the exact time, plus or minus a day of when the event occurred, and kind of do a back and forth, flipping back and forth. And if there is damage associated with that, and a long narrow path associated with the tornado, it just pops right out of the imagery. So that was something that we discovered in 2018. It's like, wow, this, we can get this imagery, and the tools are there to really make the stuff pop out. And suddenly we were seeing lots of damage in areas away from population. One of the areas where it really surprised us was Quebec. And that's kind of north of the Montreal, Quebec City corridor, where, it's very populated there, but there haven't been a lot of tornado reports through the years. But just north of there, in the forest north of there, we were seeing all kinds of tornadoes, like some really big ones, going through the woods. And we picked them up with a satellite imagery, and suddenly we were dealing with the largest outbreak of tornadoes in Quebec history, in our very first year. So we thought, whoa, we've hit a gold mine here. Thankfully for Quebec, it slowed down after 2017 and 2018, and that isn't the hotspot anymore. Every year the hotspot for the country changes, right? For a couple of years, Quebec was a real hotspot, and there were something like 41 tornadoes in 2 years that were pretty. Some of them were pretty serious, to EF3. So it was just a big surprise, and this is part of what the project's about. Is we want to be surprised. We want to know where things are happening where we didn't think they were happening before, and that was certainly one of the areas where we just didn't expect to see that level of activity, and it's really opened our eyes.
That's crazy.
So do you guys work closely with Environment Canada and helping get tornadoes classified and whatnot?
Yeah, we work with them mostly within the first 24 to 48 hours after an event happens. That's when there's the most media interest and public interest in what happened, and so we'll work with them, share data, share reports, that kind of thing, to make sure that the damage is going to be covered and surveyed, and that we come up with a preliminary estimate of what happened, a preliminary assessment. And that's what can go out over the circuits and shows up in the summary and goes out to the newspapers and that kind of thing. But for us at NTP, the work is just beginning there. Sometimes it takes another week, another 2 weeks, maybe even more, to get the full picture of what happened, and get the full length and width and the intensity. How many tornadoes? There's been quite a few events where initially it just looked like maybe one tornado occurred, and then once we start sorting through the data and looking at our high resolution satellite imagery, suddenly we're talking about an outbreak of 6, 7, and so on. So it's it takes a while for us to sort through all that data, and we might not get the final answer on an event like that for well after when the preliminary estimate was announced. So we try to make the preliminary assessment as accurate as possible given the data we have then, but we do spend a lot of time thoroughly examining each event and making sure we're not missing anything. And like I said, a lot of times the results are there's just a lot more going on than what it seemed at first.
Yeah, for sure.
How many people do you have helping you, and how many man hours would you put in on an average storm?
Sure. Well, Okay, so we've got 2 full-time engineers that work with us, and 1 full-time and 1 part-time meteorologist. Another research assistant, a whole bunch of grad students, the library staff. I mean, it's getting to, for NTP, I think we're getting up to a dozen or more people that are involved in making all these events happen. And the engineering and meteorology part is really a unique thing. There's not too many places in the world that are systematically collecting tornado data from both an engineering and a meteorology point of view. And soon we're going to be adding a social science aspect to that as well, where a social scientist is going to be part of the damage survey and collecting impacts information and social science, in data that can be part of the record. So we're really looking for a holistic view of each event, and how long it takes, how many hours it takes to do this. It really depends on the event. There's some events, like I said, that are fairly simple. We know it's a tornado because the video has already been on TV and on all across social media. We go out there and just collect the basics of how long, how wide, how strong, and that might be wrapped up all in a week. There are other events where, say they occur out in northwestern Ontario, away from population areas, and the satellite shows us that there's something big happened. There's a lot of trees down, but it's not really clear what's tornado, what might be downburst. And in those cases, we end up sending out an aircraft to do aircraft aerial. And so that gets very high resolution data to the point where you can see every tree and the direction they're down. And then we can start looking into, okay, is there rotation associated with this damage? Can we separate the tornado from the downburst and so on? We had one event in Brooks Lake, I think it was 2020, up in northwestern Ontario. It ended up the width of the tornado was 2.4 kilometers, so really big. And when we analyzed it for tornado versus downburst, the main portion of the damage, it was at some 35 kilometers or so long. All along the edges of the tornado were signatures for microbursts. So we had 33 microbursts along the edges feeding into this huge tornado. And so that's the widest tornado on record in Canada now. And wow. So we spent a lot of time analyzing that tree by tree and all the directions, so we knew exactly what was going on. So yeah, that was really labor intensive. And, that was one of the first times we really dug into that level. We call it a Fujita level, Fujita style analysis, because Ted Fujita back in the day spent hours and hours like that, looking at every tree and mapping out every microburst and how it interacted with the tornado. And so we want to do that kind of work and make sure we get it all right. And so it does require a lot of time to do. But it's worth it because you learn so much about the event and what's possible. In fact, that event, we could only rate it EF2 because we're up in the Canadian Shield, and it doesn't take as much to knock down trees up there. So the highest we can really go when there's that shallow soil is EF2. But there are indications just from the patterns that the trees are down in that it was likely higher, maybe EF3 or maybe even a bit higher. But being that wide, I would not be surprised.
Yeah, no kidding. So I'm not sure if you'll know the answer to this one or not, but if you were to guess, how many tornadoes has NTP surveyed to date?
375.
Well, you knew the answer.
I just looked at that today. Yeah, we've done almost 1,000 event analyses, and of those, 375 were tornadoes. Now, all of the rest were either downbursts or somebody sent us a picture of a funnel cloud, but we couldn't confirm that it was causing damage at the surface or had potentially damaging winds at the surface. So we call those non-tornadic vortices. Some were gustnados, some are dust devils. Um, the evidence that we have, we just can't, there's no way to really decide whether it's one or the other. So we call them, if it's visual, it's unconfirmed visual vortex. And if it's damage, we call it unconfirmed wind damage. So it's kind of like the, in the maybe pile. We'll probably never get enough evidence to get it out of the maybe pile. But, just an indication that something happened and we recognize that. And whoever took that nice picture of the funnel cloud, sorry, we can't confirm it as a tornado, but we'll count it as one of these, unconfirmed visual vortices. So yeah, there's a wide variety of events that we can confirm, and as you can see, out of 1,000 events, a third of them are tornadoes.
I'm willing to bet you got a ton of dust devils last year from the prairies.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, another month or so is when we start getting into dust devil season, and suddenly we see them all over the place, and it gets challenging because they really, near the surface, they really look like landspout tornadoes.
Oh yeah.
And so a lot of the time when we get a report, we're like, can you just pan up? We want to see whether it's cloud base or not, right? And sometimes you just can't determine that from the data you get, so it goes in that that maybe pile. But a lot of times, they're panning up, and you can see there's not a cloud in the sky above it, and it's easy to confirm that it's a dust devil and not anything else.
What tools does the NTP use to forecast tornado outlooks, and is there anywhere that the public can see what your forecasts are? Sure.
We started doing forecasts specifically for tornadoes because our ground teams need to know. They need to prepare. They might have to fly across the country tomorrow or the next day. So it's good to give them a bit of a heads up that hey, your plans for the weekend might be disrupted here and you're flying. One time it was Fort Smith, Northwest Territories, that we sent a guy to.
So you remember that? You know that barbecue you're gonna have? Sorry, man, not this weekend.
Exactly. We end up putting out. Most of the time, it's a 2-day outlook, and we use all the tools I'm sure everybody else knows about. All of the SPC, the great SPC tools that are available online, a lot of the modeling data, and then the climatology and everything else that goes into the tornado forecast. What we do as far as making them public, because we really don't want to be competing with Environment Canada on a tornado forecast and tornado watches and warnings and that kind of thing. But if we do up an outlook and it really shows that a tornado is likely in a 2-day time frame, and especially if we do an update the next morning and it's still looking really likely that there's going to be a tornado or a tornado outbreak, we will put out a tweet and a Facebook post about that, just as a community service. It's heads up, it looks like the ingredients are there and are coming together for a tornado threat, and please pay attention to the Environment Canada watches and warnings today, that kind of thing. But that's the extent of it. We don't really want to get into competition with Environment Canada when it comes to severe weather.
So we were talking about this a little bit before we went live, but for those who are listening and watching, what's up with this new Northern Hails project I've heard about?
Yeah, well, the idea is we start with tornadoes because we already had made progress along the path of learning more about tornado climatology. We had some work that had been done in the past, and we're just building on that. So that was my interest as well going into this. Is I've really been interested in tornadoes and building that climatology. But we always have had in the back of our minds that we want to expand this to other severe convective storm hazards such as hail and flash flooding. We've already made headway with downbursts as part of doing the tornado work. You end up doing the downburst work. So we've got a lot of downburst information now as well. We actually almost collect more downburst information than tornado information through the course of the year, just because
just the way it works out.
Yeah. So we had the plan that eventually we are going to expand and get into hail. What happened is that there was an insurance-funded hail project that was going to start this coming summer, and so we thought it would be a good idea to try to join forces with that and build a project on it. So there's an Alberta-focused hail project that is starting this summer and is going to go for at least 3 years. And if our funding comes through for the rest of it, then it'll probably go for 5 years. But at the same time, we're also starting this Northern Hail project at Western, and we want it to be a lot like the Northern Tornadoes project in that we're going to start in Alberta and really look at developing better hail climatology there, and then expand out from there to across the country, like we've done with the Northern Tornadoes project. With the Northern Tornadoes project, we started out in 2017, just looking at the forests of northern Ontario and into northern Quebec, and saying, "You think we could find a tornado in there that no one's found?" And we thought we might find a couple, and then, like I said, we found the biggest outbreak in Quebec history. So this is where we want to go with hail as well, right? We know a bit about hail. There's been some work on hail climatology, but we don't have a really good idea across Canada, away from populated areas, especially where the hail threats are. And so we want to put the resources into making a hail program like the tornado program, where we're really improving our knowledge of where hail is occurring and what the risk is across the country, where the big hail occurs, and where the hail might actually get deep. I know I've seen the prairies where you have to start bringing out the snow removal equipment after a hailstorm. It doesn't happen too often in Ontario, but we do get our share of hailstorms out here too. So it'll be interesting to see how that program evolves. And so we're just in the process of hiring my equivalent for NHP, so the executive director for NHP, and then a meteorologist, a full-time meteorologist for the project too. So that'll get the project off the ground starting this summer. And like I said, pending successful grant applications, it'll get quite a bit bigger.
Oh, that's awesome. Incredible.
So I have one last question before we go to break about NDP, and that's simply, where can I get one of those awesome hoodies you're wearing?
Yeah, look at that, eh? Let's see, it's Western. We were trying to figure out the best way to make a contest or something like that. There's been a lot of interest. We have the caps too, and I'm not sure if you saw that we started a program that was like a super contributor program. So people on social media who are really into helping us out and actually go out and do their own surveys and that kind of thing. We call them super contributors and give them the ball cap and all that stuff. So we've got that program, but we're gonna have to figure out another program to get these things out there. So
even just a merch store, we could fund the project for you.
Yeah. No, they're nice to wear over the winter. That's for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Thinking about tornadoes over the winter.
I can't imagine you'd be wearing it much while you're doing tornado surveys, though.
No. We've got specially branded uniforms for that. NTP hard hats and work shirts and
mosquito netting.
What's that?
Mosquito netting.
Mosquito netting, yeah. NTP brand mosquito repellent, we've got it all.
All right. Well, on that note, we're into our break now. So if anybody that's watching live has any questions for Dave, now's your chance to send them to us in the comments. And we'll We'll get back to the episode in a few minutes. I'm going to go grab another drink while we're on break, though.
Perfect. If you need to grab a drink or anything, Dave, feel free.
Yeah, sure. I've been
This is
drinking as we're going here. So.
This is the part that Jordan cuts out of the podcast.
Okay, sure.
Arnold Ashton said Quebec's going to be a hotspot again.
Ah. You know Arn?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. He's one of Environment Canada's best and most legendary severe weather forecasters
Oh, nice.
from Ontario. So he's a friend of mine too. Good guy.
Well, you heard it here first then.
And a weather weenie.
And a weather weenie.
Oh yeah.
I think we all are at heart. Yeah, that hail project, that's going to be neat. I'm quite interested to see that. Especially for the farming side of it. I think that'll be really, really nice to see.
Yeah, the big difference is just the kind of the commodification of the hail data, because there's a lot of private interests that are either collecting hail data or using hail data. There's a lot of money involved, and we're not used to that. It's not the same with tornadoes, right? Like, oh boy, hope we're not going to be stepping on too many people's toes offering all this for free, but we'll see.
You'll find out real quick.
Yeah.
Shannon's watching the excuse me.
Shannon Bolesky.
She wants you to keep the hail away from her.
Keep the hail away.
So that ate up. Well, that'll be perfect. We'll be right around the hour.
Sure.
We'll fly through these next few questions here. Is there what did you say your website was? I'll make sure I get a banner made for it here.
Yeah, it's uwo.ca/NTP.
uwo.ca/NTP. Does that look right?
That's it.
Perfect. I don't think we had a banner for that. Because at the end, when we get your social media stuff and all of that, we've got you on Twitter and we've got your website, but we don't have the UWO website.
Yeah, I think on the Twitter, I think you put David_Sills, and it's actually Dave_Sills.
Oh, okay. Let me fix that. Where is that? Oh no, he's got it right. He must have just done. He must have done that on the advertisement.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I put out a tweet earlier today on chaser safety stuff, and I'm happy to see it's kind of going a little bit viral here.
Excellent.
On you guys familiar with Chuck Doswell?
I'm not.
Really? Wow. Amazing.
I don't think I am. I don't know.
Yeah, it's totally amazing. When I was coming up, when I was your age, Chuck Doswell was this storm chasing god. Like he was the guy, and he put together a document on how to chase safely and responsibly. And
Okay.
It was kind of like the Bible for many of the years where I was chasing actively in, I guess, the 2000s. And he's retired now. He's still active, but he's retired. And I just don't think a lot of people are reading that article anymore.
Oh, no kidding. That's something that could definitely come back.
So, yeah, no kidding.
I figured that out today with a good picture of Chuck. I mean, it's hard. He's unmistakable with the cowboy hat and the whole works. So, and it's really taken off. So I'm really happy to see that people are getting to look at that article again, and it's quite good.
It definitely needs to make a resurgence.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of. Anyway, I'm not getting into that. I added a banner, Jordan.
Oh, did you?
This one.
There we go. There's the tweet Dave's talking about.
There's Chuck. I really don't know how that picture came to be, but that's
That is fantastic.
that's total Chuck right there.
Oh, that needs to be the cover of a book.
He needs to write a book. He's got so many stories. Totally imposing guy though, like really tall and with the cowboy hat on and he's not afraid of telling anybody what he thinks of them. And he thinks he's always right, and he usually is. So he's very confident in his opinions. So to have a conversation with him about chasing or tornadoes or anything is, it's pretty intimidating. So there you go. Chuck is a legend.
That UWO link banner?
Yes.
Is that what you added? Okay.
Yep.
I almost forgot to add the slide for the game show today. I did it like an hour before the show.
Well, we could have figured it out. You can tell it's the last one, hey?
Yeah, no kidding.
We've
Letting things slide.
got chasing on the brain now. No more snow. Get out under a storm. Oh,
Yeah, you're
so excited.
Pretty good.
Well, thank you. It's warmer times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, should we keep this show rolling?
Yeah, doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in, so I will play our sponsored ad and then we'll get back into the show.
Perfect.
Hail damage. It can happen at any time, and when it does, bring it to the hail repair specialists at Miracle Dent, because dents are what we do. Our paintless dent repair process maintains your original factory finish with no repainting or parts to order. You'll have your vehicle with its original factory paint back in no time like it never happened. If Mother Nature has put a dent in your summer, come to Miracle Dent Repair. Dents are what we do.
Bet
Got
you
it.
places like that are going to like the Northern Hail Project.
I love that sound. Every time you play that, I just love the hail bouncing off the car. So now it's time for our 21 question segment, where we get to learn all about David's life as a weather guru.
Okay.
So, because we've got the podcast, I like to ask every single guest what their secret weapon is when it comes to either forecasting their chase or tornadoes, or what is the one thing they couldn't do without for the forecasting.
For forecasting, well, I mean, for the 2 to 3 days out, I'm really into ensemble models. So I'm really religious about using the SREF, especially the SREF that SPC has on their webpage. I don't know if people spend much time with that, but I find it really useful. I mean, it's and there's the HREF now too, which once you get a little closer, the high resolution ensemble forecast is super useful as well. So yeah, I mean, basically you're dealing with uncertainty, a lot of uncertainty. The idea that one model is going to be the solution, and especially counting on that model every time, I think it's just crazy. So when you're dealing with an ensemble approach, you've got different model types, you've got different physics in different models. So just different runs that are varying slightly, and give you a picture of what's possible. And the mean of the ensemble is supposed to be the best as far as forecasts, and that can be true. But just getting an idea of how much uncertainty there is and what some of the outliers are is also important, because one of those outlier situations could be the situation for the day. So you just have to keep that in mind. So yeah, when it gets within a 2-3 day range, I'm all about the ensembles and really picking up on the uncertainty associated with the setup, and what parameters are the ones that are really the most sensitive and are the ones to watch.
That's awesome. That question started out as me just being selfish and wanting to get everyone's secrets, but over the season, I've really loved how every single person has answered it differently. Not one person has answered that question the same. Like, it's basically just look at everything every day, all the time. That's what I've gotten out of it.
More data,
Right?
Yeah.
No, that's neat. I really like that.
Anybody who does forecasting, more data.
So on that note, can you suggest any places that a person wanting to learn about the weather should look?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hate to say it again, but the SPC site is amazing for the amount of information they've got on there. And then you've got the tutorial videos on there about tornado forecasting that are just amazing as well. So it's such a great site that they keep up there, and all top notch people that work there, all top notch um, tools and technologies that go into that site. If they'd only cover a little bit further north than some,
I know, right?
and we've been working on them over the years. Can you just extend that window just a bit further north? So definitely spend a lot of time there. And as far as Canadian stuff, yeah, it's really difficult. The community is so small in Canada, the severe weather community, as far as like people working in the university environments and generating this kind of knowledge, and the forecast offices are pretty I would say insular. Like there's not a lot that gets out of them except the official products. It's not like in the US where each of them has their own web page, and you get a really good sense of who's behind the forecast. It's just it's just a different culture in the Canadian forecast offices. So that's a little bit harder to get behind the scenes and maybe pick the brains of some of the people that are putting out these watches and warnings every day. Although Arn Ashton is on this this podcast, and he's one of the guys that's one of the best as far as trying to get information out to people. So way to go, Arn.
And we have now got his name down to reach out to for season 2.
That's right. He himself is a big source of information. So, if you want to know anything, he's done the severe weather. He's been on the hot seat in some of the biggest severe weather situations in Ontario in the last, 20 years or so. So, he's got a lot of the experience. Probably one of the most experienced tornado forecasters in Canada, if not. Oh, there he is. Yeah. and he's so humble too.
Really quick before the next question, he was asking if any of us are planning on venturing south for chasing this year. I'm not sure about you, Dave, but Curtis and I are heading out on April 30th for the month of May. Going down to Tornado Alley.
So sorry to everyone in the States, because there's going to be no tornadoes while we're there.
I get down in the U.S. Every once in a while. I chased there 2004 and 2005, like with a big group, and had a great time. I mean, this is ages ago. This is before you had internet in the vehicle, and it was just a different world back then. And not that many chasers. But I went with my son in 2015 or 16 and did some Northern Plains chasing in July, and had a really good time doing that. So that was great. But, I'm so busy with the Tornado Project now. I'm really just getting out on, after work chases, and if something happening on a weekend. I did get out with a friend, Travis Farncombe, and headed out to Saskatchewan and Alberta in the middle of June last year. It looked really good. And the stuff in Alberta didn't do so great, but we really kind of rolled the dice and thought something could happen in Saskatchewan. and followed the boundaries. That's, I guess, another thing that I use a lot is boundaries, as a boundaries, to try to focus where it focuses convection. And we just followed the boundaries right to this great thunderstorm that produced 3 tornadoes, beautiful, long skinny tornadoes that
Right
just
to Darcy.
on the prairies, right?
Yep,
So,
right to Darcy.
and it was funny because right after that, it's like the day after that, basically the prairie shut down until the middle of August.
They sure did.
Yeah.
For that one you're talking about, I was safe at home sitting in my lawn chair. I was nowhere near that.
Yeah.
I was watching yours and Travis's Twitter feeds and swearing
when
quite.
we left some chaser friends behind in Alberta, and they said, "Oh, you're never going to get anything out there." And I think they really regretted not coming with us that day because it just seemed like it wasn't going to be that big of a deal. And yeah, you just you never know until you're out there. So
Well, just a few days prior, we had chased the one down by Assiniboia that turned into nothing. I was feeling kind of dejected. I actually met Travis down around there.
That's right. Yeah.
And nothing happened. It's like, this does not look good enough for me to go all the way across the province. I'm just staying at home. And looking at Twitter. I'm going to mow the lawn.
So, Dave, what would you say your favorite part of the chase is?
The favorite part of the chase. Oh man, there's a bunch of different ones. I really enjoy the fact that when you're doing up the forecast in the morning, it's not just a forecast that's going to be, you put it out and it's gone and you're not caring anymore. This is the forecast that's going to carry you through the day and determine where you sleep that night and if you're ready in position for the next day. So there's a lot riding on this forecast, and usually, when you're out with a group, everybody's debating it, and everybody's got their own biases, and everybody's got their own favorite tools, and it's just such an exciting time, coming up with that forecast, and then you're going to test it later in the day. So that's one favorite, and then the other favorite is being in the spot that you predicted, and just waiting for that first cue to pop, and the excitement of just seeing things happen, from just the first cloud to all of a sudden, this massive thunderstorm with some great structure. And, even if it doesn't produce a tornado, just the fact that, you forecast that this was going to happen in this place, and just the transformation from nothing to this incredibly huge mountain of water, basically. And it's just something else. And you're awestruck every time. So
Absolutely.
It gets me excited.
My favorite parts, I guess.
So how'd you get interested in the weather?
Oh, geez, I've been into the weather since I was a little kid. It's one of those things where, my parents kind of knew I was into the weather, and all through school I was doing weather stuff. And it's so different now, because if you're really into weather now, even in high school or whatever, you can get online and start your own weather forecast company, basically. Right? When I was in high school, it's like you knew nobody who was interested in weather, except you. And so you'd order a book, and wow, you'd pour through it, and then as soon as I could start driving, I was out trying to follow thunderstorms and that kind of thing. But I had no clue there were other people who are also interested in doing these kinds of things. So it's just a different world now. But I don't remember what the question was, but anyway, it's how I got interested in it. Yeah. So that then deciding to make a career out of it was another big part of it. And I kind of went a roundabout way of doing it. I went to the University of Waterloo in physics with the thought that I was going to get a degree there and then a diploma in meteorology somewhere down the line. But then I figured out when I was at Waterloo that I was going to have to major in something like solid state physics or nuclear physics to get through that program to get to the full diploma. This isn't for me. So I transferred to Europe and got into that program there. And the world kind of changed there. And And yeah, I really wanted to get into be a Environment Canada forecaster, like an ARN. And I kind of got cheated though, because right when I graduated, the government shut down their training program and put a hiring freeze on for 5 years. But, yeah, now what do I do? So that's how I
Crap.
ended up getting into research and ended up getting a PhD. And looking at the influence of the Great Lakes on severe weather and dangerous air quality. And so it all tied back to severe weather, and here I am, doing this job totally dedicated to severe weather. And I do have to mention, the resources for this program. A lot of the resources for Northern Tornadoes Project, Northern Hail Project, come from Impact WX, which is a social impact fund out of Toronto. And so, this is a really unique situation in the world to have, a donor funding major projects like this, that it just would not get funded otherwise. If you tell a government funding agency you want to go look for tornadoes in places where no one lives, they're not going for it.
Yeah.
But Impact WX is like, yeah, let's really figure out what's going on in this country as far as tornadoes, and they're totally behind it.
That's awesome.
Put up quite a bit of money to do it. So I mean, we've got $1 million budget a year basically to do this. It's that's a huge amount of money for doing this kind of work. So just to say that this is quite an opportunity for me and for Western and for anybody involved in this program, because it just doesn't happen. It hasn't happened before like this, and it's a really unique situation.
That's fantastic.
Shout out to Impact WX.
Yeah.
Who has been your most important professional mentor?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to go back to Chuck Doswell again. He's been a hero of mine since I got into this, and mostly because he was really concerned about getting things right, doing the science right, and making sure you understood what in the atmosphere is happening right. But he also understood the human component in forecasting, and was really concerned that computers were kind of taking over that element, that we're going to lose the human element in forecasting, which is pretty much, we're almost there.
Yeah.
Issuing the watches and warnings is one of the last areas where, the human input into the prediction process is still really important. And even that's, there's efforts underway to try to automate that. But anyway, just to say that, he's a guy who really had his heart into this business and put everything he had into it. And you could really tell he was very passionate about it and dedicated his life to it, and all aspects of it. Like I said, he was a major chaser and very generous with his time. He'd come up to Canada, give presentations at certain conferences and workshops, and just a great guy in the weather biz, and known around the world for that as well. So like I said, you guys didn't even know who that was. So
No.
You're boning up when this is done, because
I will be.
A figure, yeah.
What's changed the most since you started chasing?
Oh, it's got to be the internet access. That when I first did my first chase with the group. I don't know if you know Mark Robinson, Storm Hunter. Yeah, he and I went down and joined his group of friends, Dave Lewison, Scott McPartland, and those guys, down in the States. And either you had to go to a library to get internet access once you're out in the field, right? You had it in a hotel usually, but once you left the hotel, it's either go to a library or try sniffing around to see who's got an open internet that you could just latch on, press the data, and get going. And so that was the story in that 2004, and there was was one day. This was May 12th. So this is the Attica, Kansas tornado.
Mm.
And that's the one where Scout McPartland got the first tripoded video of a roof coming off a house. You see the tornado come by and the roof just kind of lifts off into the air. So we were chasing with those guys. And that day it was a good setup. And like I said, we were sniffing around for data. We were in the middle of, it was Southwest Kansas, like middle of nowhere, basically. We pull up to this gas station, and one of us says, "Hey, we got a signal! We got a signal!" Everybody gets on a laptop, trying to download as much as possible. We got just enough information to know that we were about 100 kilometers west of where we needed to be. So we threw the laptops in the truck, started heading east real fast, and as we did, everything just blew up on this line, and there were mezzos and lowerings everywhere. It was awesome. Supercells everywhere. Tornadoes dropping here. You got the Dow driving this way. One Dow is driving the other way. People are,
it was chaos.
Yeah, and we don't have any radar in the car like you do now. We were just going off data that we had an hour and a half ago or something like that. So, it was really kind of chaotic, but quite, it was really fun and challenging too. And I almost think now that you've got the radar in the vehicle, you could get in more trouble now than you could get back. Because you can actually see where the hook echo is. Well, if I just slide in there, I might be able to.
I can get a little closer.
Yeah. Back then it was like, geez, I don't know where this is going, so I'm just keeping back, right? So it was just a totally different thing. And
Hide
like
the screen.
Back then, it was just the start of Chase Tours, and a couple of them were out there. There was a couple colleges that had started a course, so a couple of them were out there. But there was nothing like the traffic jams you get into now when you're around the storm. You actually sometimes felt like, hey, we're the only ones on this storm, even though you weren't. But
yeah,
like it sometimes just because there weren't that many people out there. So yeah, it was just a different world. I'm not sure which one's better, but I enjoy having all of the internet in the car and knowing more about what situation I'm in. But there was kind of a ignorance is bliss back then,
Yeah. So what did you do as a job before you started your career in weather?
Well, let's see. I painted. I was a camp counselor. I edited a phone book for a town.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
That was one of the better ones. The next one was I worked at a wildlife rescue place for a total of 2 days. I thought it was going to be great. I was going to be out rescuing wildlife, but the owner had different plans for me, and she said, "Okay, the first thing you're going to spend is the first week cleaning out the raccoon cages." Like, oh boy! So once I nearly passed out from the fumes coming out of these raccoon cages, I'm like, okay, that's enough for me.
And that took 2 days to figure that out.
Yeah. But it wasn't long after that I got into doing stuff that was weather related, and just try my best to get into stuff that was weather related in the summers and that kind of thing while I was doing undergrad and so on. So I didn't have too much job experience outside of weather before I really got into the thick of things.
What would your biggest challenge have been trying to get into the weather?
Well, like I said, I wanted to be a forecaster really bad. I wanted to be able to be the one that pushed the button on the warning, and that was kind of that dream kind of disappeared, and so I had to rejig my career a bit. And the funny thing is though is I got into research, got my PhD, and then I got hired by Environment Canada in the research section. So the research section is basically developing tools and new technology and stuff for or in support of the forecast operations. So I had seen what they were doing in the U.S. with I don't know if you know the spring program and hazardous weather test bed and those kinds of things that you kind of have a parallel office. So I said, hey, why don't we try having a research support desk, like a desk in the operations area where someone in research, me, could sit in the forecast office and be part of the severe weather goings on. I can bring the research tools in, and I can bring out what the science gaps are and let the scientists know. And actually, it was pretty successful for over a decade. I had this research support desk going, and various people went through it, forecasters and researchers. And so that was really fun, and it got me back to where I wanted to be in the forecast office. But the biggest frustration was, and Aaron knows this, who's on, is I never got to push the button. I always ended up having to beg the person on the desk to push the button. So, but I learned a lot, and good friends, and just being in an office. It's a fun environment a lot of the time.
Is it a literal red button?
I think they wish it was, because at least when I was doing it back then, the software they're using for issuing warnings was complicated to the point of if you put in an extra period by mistake, it would break the whole system. And you'd have PSs running around trying to fix that for half an hour while you've got severe weather occurring. So, it's got quite a bit better since then, thankfully. But yeah, having just a big red button that would do all the necessary things would be a great thing.
That's how you end up with Hawaii issuing nuclear missile strike warnings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, who are the three most influential people in your life, and how have they impacted you?
Holy cow.
Right?
Big question.
Going deep.
Big. Well, is it supposed to be people I know or people that I like,
Doesn't matter.
Either
matter?
or.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, one that I have to say is my dad, because, and this is coming on the music side. I do have, an album that I put out,
Which is awesome.
Thank you. And that was kind of a dream, getting that kind of, writing an album and getting all of my friends and family that are musically oriented and talented together to get that out. And, my dad is the one who taught me how to play. And, since I was a kid, we were recording songs all the time, even though it was on an 8-track tape player. And, he always found ways to be able to record what we were doing. And so that really, really led to this passion for music that I have, not just hearing it. I love listening to music and going to shows, but also writing and performing and recording, and having that album out was just, like on the bucket list. And actually, he co-wrote a song with me on it about Hurricane Katrina. And
Lament for New Orleans.
Lament for New Orleans, yeah.
Yeah.
And he actually sings on that one too. So, it was great to be able to do that. And so yeah, there's number one. There's more.
We can leave it at 1, 2. That's fine.
Okay, sure. That's good. That's probably good.
What's the largest hail you've seen?
Largest hail I've seen. Yeah, I participated in the Vortex 2 project in the States. So that was 2009 and 2010. And I don't know if you're familiar with that one, but it was an experiment, a fully mobile experiment to study the verification of the origins of rotations in tornadoes experiment, Vortex. You got to have that acronym, right? The sexy acronym. So we brought down an instrumented vehicle, and we were part of a kind of an armada of instrumented vehicles, and we each had our tasks to be around the supercell. And so, we got to see quite a few very interesting storms over those the 2 seasons that we went out. And one of them, we could see the huge hail falling just down the road from us. And strangely, there was a news helicopter that was flying just like not even a mile from it.
Ooh.
They were looking at a tornado because we couldn't see the tornado, but we're listening to the radio, and they said they could see the tornado. So we knew that the up there could see the tornado. But anyway, there's huge hail falling down the road. And so after the storm went by, we went by and picked up some, and it was this really big spiky stuff, really spiky.
Yeah.
It already melted somewhat. So after it had melted and the spikes were starting to come off, it was about 5-6 centimeters across, and it must have probably been 7 or 8 when it originally fell. So yeah, that's not something you want to get hit by.
No,
Yeah,
you're
absolutely not.
You're losing a windshield or 2.
Yeah. It's funny, during Vortex, like I said, everybody had their own missions around the supercell, and my mission with my buddy Neil Taylor, who's out in Edmonton, was to be in the inflow region, and we chose that because we wanted to stay on the safe side of the storm, have a view of everything, but there were other guys who were just so keen about going around the backside and getting slammed with hail. They come around the other side, their windshields would be blown out. And they collected some great data, but man, we went through some incredible hail to get it.
Oh man, the glass that they'd be washing out of their hair.
So how many different countries have you seen a tornado in?
3 different countries. So oddly enough, the first tornado I ever saw was in Australia. So
Well, makes sense.
yeah, well, it was the 2000
Close to home.
Olympics, and usually during Olympics, the countries, like the host country, invites other countries to bring their forecast systems for a little kind of forecast Olympics as things are going on. And so you get exposed to the latest technology from each country and so on. So I was there one Saturday. I was manning the Canadian system and watching the other systems, and this incredible supercell forms on the Seabreeze front. This is in Sydney, right? And I'm there with Pat McCarthy, who you might know, chaser extraordinaire from Winnipeg, ex of Environment Canada. And so Pat and I are looking out the window, the 16th floor of the forecast office in Sydney, at the supercell, and Pat's giving the play-by-play. He's like, okay, so now the lowering's going to start. Okay, there it is. Okay, now we're going to get the RFE coming around, and of course everything's rotating the opposite way down there.
Yeah.
So wrap your brain around that, and then all of a sudden there it is. There's it's producing a tornado right out the window of the forecast office. And the funny thing was they didn't issue a tornado warning, and some of the bigger, more senior people came by and said, if this was in North America, would you issue a tornado warning right now?
It's on the ground.
Yeah.
But they really hadn't gotten. They're quite a bit behind as far as tornado warnings go. They just thought they'd panic the public if they issued a tornado warning, and they're really cagey about putting anything about a tornado in the forecast or in a warning. I think things have changed there now because of the work that has been done on tornadoes there since. But back then, it was just not something they were prepared to do. Put out a tornado.
That's nuts.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I saw my first tornado there, and actually, another funny thing was that we saw it, and then no one was going to do anything about it. So I said, "Well, can we organize a damage survey?" And they said, oh, I suppose. Let's see if we can get a car together. So a bunch of us jump in this car and head out, and suddenly we're talking to all these Australians and going through their backyards and looking for damage. And we're on the Australian news as tornado. It was crazy. I ended up writing a whole journal paper about the whole thing. But anyway,
That escalated very quickly.
it did.
Yeah.
So that was my first, and then my second was in the States. That was that 2004 Attica tornado, Medicine Lodge too before that. So that whole day there was tornadoes all over. So those are my first tornadoes in the States. And in Canada, my first tornado, I actually saw kind of by accident. And this is after chasing for years in Southern Ontario. It's so hard to find tornadoes in Southern Ontario. It's so murky in a storm situation.
Yeah.
I was with my family. We were going down the 401, the main highway. I see a storm come up, and I said, everybody's kind of busy in their books and stuff. I said, hey, do you mind if I just kind of pull off and head towards the storm? Oh, yeah, go ahead. And so I'm heading up and, get some nickel hail falling, and then take a left and turn in, and there's a nice lowering. So I stopped the vehicle and I said, well, if there was going to be a tornado, it'd be right there. And my son says, well, what about right there? So I look over, and there's a tornado right next to us. Thing, but it's in the field next to us. Holy cow, I'm looking over there. And my wife says, well, what about in front of us? And then there's another tornado right in front of us. Just, weak stuff. But, this guy comes flying down the road. He says, is that a tornado? Is that a tornado? And I said, yeah, that's a tornado. He said, oh, get the hell out of here. So I thought, with all these tornadoes dropping around, I think maybe we should back off just a bit here. So just, backed off a couple kilometers, turned around, and it was all over. It was, when I looked at it on radar afterwards, it was just this kind of a blip. Just happened to be in the right spot at the right time, and just this, weak tornadoes popped up. And
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So that was my first 3 tornadoes in 3 countries.
That's awesome.
I don't know how many people have seen 3 tornadoes in 3 countries. I know Pat McCarthy has, because he saw the one with me in Australia. But I don't know how many people have seen tornadoes in multiple countries. It's
Probably not many.
There'd be a very, very select group, I would imagine.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But if you get the chance to do any tornado chasing in Australia, there's a whole crew of people down there that would just love to have visitors and take them out, and they get some incredible stuff out there. It's really,
Oh yeah. I have a few Australian chase buddies. I'm always seeing their posts on Twitter. They get some pretty nice stuff.
Yeah.
What was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from that experience?
Whoa, biggest failure.
And you can't use the raccoon cage because you've already used that.
Jeez, biggest failure. I had a hard time thinking of a big failure. I guess it was, the biggest letdown was not being able to be in the Environment Canada program and having to readjust everything in my life, basically, after not being able to get into that. So it's not so much of a failure as like just a lost opportunity. And
that's the same thing.
You see the forecast that did go through before it got closed down. They called them mock training, and now it's MOIP training. And there's a lot of camaraderie that's built between forecasters that go through these programs together. They're really tough. You have to really know your stuff, and they're kind of weeding people out as you go. And the people who make it through the other end, it's quite an experience. And so it's a really a bonding thing. And so a lot of the forecasters have gone through that and had that bond and made really good friends through that. And I just feel like I never got the chance, right? It just, I had that taken away from me. So I always felt kind of bad about that. But they've now, like I said, they've gone to this MOIP training, and it's similar, I think. So people are getting that experience again and making these bonds again that can last a lifetime.
So, out of all of the amazing weather events you've covered or experienced, which one's the most important or stands out the most to you?
Oh boy, such probing questions.
They get easier after this.
Yeah.
I guess I go back to I guess this is 1980. Um, July 16th, 1980, I think it was. And there was a big derecho that came through. I lived in Windsor. I grew up in Windsor, Ontario.
Mm.
And this big derecho came through. And it was just one of these remarkable things where it was a morning thing. The light was all very weird, yellows and greens, and a big, massive shelf coming across. And it was really the first, massive storm like that I'd seen as a kid. And as it came across, every tree that you could see out a window was bent straight over. We all ran down into the basement. When it was over, it was like one of these events where all the neighbors are outside, counting up the damage and pumping out their basements, and the whole community is affected by it. And then I found out later that there had been a tornado just to the southwest of us. I didn't know that till I started researching tornadoes and looked back at that. It was a tornado in that. I also found out that Vegeta studied that event on the U.S. side, so just across the river, and it was a really big derecho event, and that hit the Detroit area. So yeah, I mean, not only did it have a really strong, enduring impact on me as someone interested in severe weather, but it affected the community in a way that was kind of permanent too. Like every time you looked out the front window, all of the trees were bent over. They stayed like that for years.
Yeah.
And so there was this constant reminder of this huge storm that had gone through. So it's those kinds of experiences. And I know lots of people in this business who had an experience like that when they were a kid, and it inspired them to become a severe weather researcher or forecaster, someone interested in the weather in some ways. And so it's really these formative experiences in your childhood that can make a huge difference in the trajectory of your life, I guess. That one for me was, it wasn't even the most severe storm in the world, but it certainly made an impact on when I was, I guess, 11-year-old mind.
All right, I got a nice softball for you now. If you won $10 million tomorrow, what would you buy?
Oh, man. Let's see. $1 million. I think it would have to be a Doppler on wheels.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we're sorely missing one of these in Canada. So
Absolutely.
Actually, we've had a couple Doppler wheels up in Canada recently. They were studying winter storms. So there was one up in Montreal just, I don't know, a month ago or so, helping out with this storm project. But yeah, we don't have a mobile radar that's part of our tools, and we're actually looking at something like it, like a portable radar that we can put out in an area where we can do research. When all the new S bands were installed across the country, the Toronto King City C-band radar and the nearby Exeter C-band radar had both been dual polarized and were really high quality radars. So when they replaced those, they offered those to Western, to use. And so we've got those two radars in crates on campus, and it's killing me that we can't use them yet. But with this hail project that we're planning or we're doing, and we're putting in the funding proposal for it. One of the big asks in the funding proposal is like you said, $1 million to set up a portable radar for research, and so that's exactly where my mind went.
That'd
It's
be
the
awesome
best
to
answer
have.
yet.
Yeah.
What songs would we find on your Storm Chase playlist?
Oh yeah. Let's see. There's I don't know if you've heard of Nico Case. She's kind of like an alt country, alt rock artist. She put out an album called Middle Cyclone, and she was going to call it Mesocyclone, but she thought people wouldn't understand what that is, so she called it Middle Cyclone. And there's a song on it. She's always wanted to be Storm Chase. There's a song on it called "This Tornado Loves You," and it's a pretty crazy song about. It's kind of like a love story, but the protagonist is a tornado. So it's an interesting one. So there's songs like that. There's another song by Sarah Harmer, another kind of alt folk artist, who's talking about hail and the storm of the century. So there's a bunch of things like that. More in the vein of my album, which is kind of like a folky, alt folk kind of thing, or rock folk, or whatever you want to call it. That I've got a bunch of songs like that have weather influences, and that's what I would throw on. Although I remember chasing with my buddy Neil Taylor, and the Arkells were one of the big groups that we'd throw on to get the energy going and get out there. So that's another side of things, I guess, is not something that mentions tornadoes, but just gets the blood pumping and gets you ready for the day and the excitement that a chase day will bring.
Replaces the caffeine.
Yeah.
So what is something interesting that most people wouldn't know about you?
Well, I sail. I've got a sailboat, and it's another thing where the wind provides the energy for the activity, and so I find it kind of blends very nicely in with the rest of my lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Actually, I was just in Montreal area last weekend looking at a new bigger boat. You always got to have a bigger boat. So yeah, but yeah, sailing, Great Lakes sailing is just amazing. Getting out on the lakes, and we're up in a place called Wyerton, so up in Georgian Bay, and water is cold and crystal clear. And we're kind of in a protected bay, so even if the wind is screaming down the bay, there's not a lot of waves, so it's great sailing there.
Nice.
You're catching all the wind you want, but you're not worried about waves throwing you around or anything like that. So yeah, it's and I've certainly seen my share of storms as we were waiting to sail or trying to get in time before a storm or something like that. So
Running away from one.
yeah, exactly. You don't want to be chasing the storm on a sailboat. Bad idea.
That brings us into Shannon's question here. Have you ever seen a water spout on your boat?
No, but I've tried. A lot of the water spouts that occur in the Great Lakes occur in the fall, and so the boat's already out by that time. And just in the last few years, I've gotten pretty good at knowing what conditions are conducive to water spouts, and I've almost made surgical strikes into just okay, I'm going to go there, and the conditions are right, and you take an hour to get there. You wait a half an hour, it develops, you get the photo of the tornado, and then wait around a while. No, it's not going to happen again, and head home. So it can be that good. It took me a long time to get to that point because I was very frustrated with water spouts for a long time. But I think the Southern Ontario chasing community is getting really tuned into waterspouts in the fall now as like here's another max in activity that we can go after. And you're spending on the beach, and
it's just terrible.
There's not much that's wrong with this picture, right? Summer waterspouts are, they do happen, but they're not as frequent, and hopefully I'll end up seeing one. Hopefully not while I'm sailing, but from the dock or whatever down the bay. That'd be great.
If you could be remembered for one thing, what would you want it to be for?
Yeah, no, I just contributions to meteorology in Canada. I did a paper in the last few years that kind of reviewed what had been done in Canada as far as meteorology goes, and we pioneered so much. Like a lot of the early work on radars for weather and detection of storms was done in Montreal at McGill, and a lot of the early work on hail had been done at U of T and in a lab and in the field in Alberta. I mean, there's decades of hail and supercell research in Alberta. The first storm chase vehicle was out in Alberta. So it's a lot of this stuff we Canadians just don't know about, right? I mean, it's just that it disappeared. Where in the U.S., there's kind of this mythology that develops around things that people just don't forget their history there, and really build it up. And so I really like bringing these things into the open so other people know about it. But also, I've done a lot of work on how the lake breezes in Ontario affect severe weather, how the dry line affects severe weather in Alberta and parts of the prairies, and all of this work on tornado climatology. So it's all just increasing our knowledge about how storms form, where they form, helping Canadians understand the severe weather around them and how it may change due to climate change is another part of it too. So this is, I'm hoping this is part of the legacy that I leave behind, is just an increased knowledge and an increased thirst for knowledge about severe weather in Canada.
Terrific. That's awesome.
What's your number one piece of... try that again. What's your number one piece of advice you'd give to someone starting out as a storm chaser?
Oh, yeah. Well, I would say the number one piece of advice is go out with someone who has some experience first. I mean, it's very easy just to go out on your own, and a lot of people do it. I mean, I did it as well, but it's just a lot safer, and you learn so much more when you go with someone who knows what they're doing, and you get that head start that you wouldn't get otherwise. And there's a lot of people out there who'd be willing to help out that way. Come chase with me, and I need someone to help me chase because I don't like chasing alone, and you can, and it's not all that safe chasing alone in the first place, but bring someone along that you can teach and that can pick up the skills and pass them along, right? So I think that's an important thing, is when you're just getting started out, see if you can pick up somebody, see if you can attach yourself to somebody at least for one chase or more, that knows what they're doing, so you pick up some good habits and don't develop some bad ones.
So what year to date has been your most successful as far as storm chasing?
Boy, I think, I think last year was my most successful storm chase year so far. Got out there with Travis in Saskatchewan. We did get a bit lucky, but we played the boundaries and knew where we were going, and ended up in just the right spot and saw 3 tornadoes there.
Yeah.
And then ended up seeing another um, water spout over Lake Huron, where again I did the forecast, got out there, like I said, almost surgical strike, and bang, it's there, right? And so when you start getting that feeling like, hey, I actually know what I'm doing, that's a good feeling. And you want to do it again and again, of course. So you just have to try to make the time to get out there. But yeah, I mean, four tornadoes in Canada in 1 year, for me, that's like that's never been able to accomplish anything close to that in the past. So
You're one of very few people who can say last year was their most successful. That's fair.
true.
What is one question that you wish we would have asked you?
Geez.
This is the last one too, I promise.
I don't know. You guys have asked a lot of great questions. Maybe what is so much better about chasing on the prairies compared to Ontario?
What is?
Oh, when we get into a southwesterly flow in Ontario, we're getting high humidity. We're getting pollution coming up from the Midwest. It's haze. It's murk. Even if you get a storm of structure, you can barely see it unless it's right on top of you. So it's really difficult. It can be dangerous that way too, because you're just not seeing things. And we tend to get really HP kind of storms too. Everything's rain wrapped and messy. Get out in the prairies, and you can see forever. All the structure is like right from a textbook. The bases are high. You can see for forever. This tornado that I saw with Travis, the three tornadoes, we thought we were right on top of that thing, and we were 15 kilometers away from it. We saw pictures of people that were 30 kilometers away from it, and they looked just like ours. I couldn't believe it. It's just amazing. Chasing in the prairies, and you guys are spoiled out there.
That is true. You're right.
I mean, our chase season is somewhat longer in Ontario. I'll probably start chasing within a month or something like that. Just going out occasionally and getting into stuff, and it can go right into October, right? Whereas it's pretty focused in the prairies. It just all of a sudden starts in June, and you get some really intense months there, and then it's
just gone.
Gone in a heartbeat. Yeah.
So, that's one of the things about, we are doing a lot of work looking into how climate change has been affecting. And it does occur to me that, you kind of push the temperatures up a bit in the middle of the country, and you could extend the severe storm season in the prairies by 2 weeks on each side. No problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal. That's a lot more storms, because once you get into that kind of instability and the ingredients, you can get top-notch storms out there, right? Mm-hmm. So it's good if we do get the predicted warming and more thunderstorms and a longer season on the prairies. That's going to be a big deal. But it's funny, because that's what people think is going to happen, and then you get what happened last year, which is
fires.
There was a drought that's been going on for a long time, especially in the American West, probably due to climate change, most likely. Then you got the heat dome that for sure was caused by climate change, caused all these massive fires, and there's smoke that's going across the country and decreasing the amount of insulation for storms. And the result is that between middle of June and middle of August, which is the prime period for thunderstorms and tornadoes on the prairies, there were no tornadoes. Zero.
Yeah. Oh, we're aware.
So you start thinking, what is climate change going to bring? Is it going to bring more, or is it going to bring like zero? It could be either one. We don't know, and that's one reason we're doing this research and building these databases for severe weather is to look at those kinds of trends and see where we're going. How things are going to change, because it's probably going to be very regional. Any change that happens is probably going to be very regional. And one thing that I had a paper out recently that looked at the long-term tornado record for Ontario, and it doesn't show that tornadoes are really increasing in frequency, not really. What it does show is that tornadoes are occurring farther and farther into the end of the season. So we're getting tornadoes in late August and early September, and even some into October. And last year it was even into November. So, and why is that? There could be a couple of reasons, but I mean, you've got the lakes that are warming rapidly, and that heat sticks around through the fall. That could be part of it. But just to say that, any of these changes due to climate change are probably going to be very regional in nature, and it's not going to be just a black and white change. It's going to be very, very kind of wonky, very regional, and we might not even realize the changes are happening right away until we get a lot of data, and then we'll look back and say, that explains why.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting, that's for sure.
The gong.
The gong. So that means it's time for our game show for today, which is science trivia.
We figured this would be in your wheelhouse.
Sure.
I believe there's 10 questions.
Oh,
yep. And I got one right.
Okay.
So I was thinking today we're probably going to give you like 3 guesses at least on each one, just to hopefully give you some better chances.
Okay.
Most of our game shows are multiple choice, but this one is not, so we'll give you 3 chances on each one.
I'm up for the challenge. Let's go.
So, question number 1. In what type of matter are atoms most tightly packed?
I way overthought this one.
What type of matter? That's interesting.
You're overthinking it, I promise.
I
Think back to like grade 5 physics.
What comes to mind is a solid as compared to a liquid or a gas.
So solid your answer?
Sure, yes.
Yeah. I was that was way too simple. What is the hottest planet in the solar system?
Let's see. I'm tempted to say Mercury, but I have a feeling it's not. I have a feeling it's Venus. Is that right?
Is that your final answer?
Yes.
You're correct. Venus has a temperature of 460 degrees Celsius on the surface.
So, question 3. What is the opposite of matter?
This is the one I knew.
I think antimatter is too easy, so I'm not going there. I would say a vacuum.
2 more guesses.
Okay. All right, well, I'll say antimatter.
One of the few times being a Marvel geek has paid off. Which of Newton's laws states that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction?
So it's first, second, or third. I think it's the third. Yeah.
You are definitely smarter than a fifth grader.
I think when I asked Curtis that one, he's like, I didn't even know there was a third.
What do you mean? There's just one.
So in 2004, what was discovered on the island of Flores in Indonesia? Hopefully I said that right.
Wow, 2004. Yeah, I'm blanking on this. The island of Flores. Was it an abandoned city?
This one's probably the toughest one, I'd say.
Yep.
Okay, 2 more guesses, right?
Yeah.
While you're getting cheered on here, our listeners are saying you're doing great.
My cousin Jerry. Hey, Jerry. Let's see. Island of Flores. Nothing's coming to mind.
You can pass if you want.
A dormant volcano. Wow, one more guess. Jeez.
This is going to be the one we stump them on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. How about the world's largest fulgurite?
So the answer for this one is the remains of a hobbit-sized human.
Oh, I do remember that.
All right, this one's easy. Well, we'll give you a softball again. What is the nearest planet to the sun? Well, the question before he answered it was, what is the nearest planet to the sun? And Dave, your answer was?
Mercury.
What color is your blood when it's inside your body?
Well, this is a trick question because it's actually 2 colors. If it's oxygenated, it's red, and if it's not, it's kind of a bluish color. So I would say blue.
But also, you're right.
Yeah. So we'll give you a right and wrong on that one. It says red. Blood contains hemoglobin, which is a red protein.
Oh, okay. What would most people think? Isn't that the obvious answer, red?
Yep, kind of a
I
trick
would
question.
think so.
And this one, this next question really pissed me off. I feel quite strongly about this one. I don't like it.
Okay.
So the question is Pluto a planet?
Pluto is no longer a planet.
It says not anymore. It's a dwarf planet. And I feel terrible. That's
Yeah, boarded off the island.
like, poor Pluto. That just bugs me.
My sister-in-law was part of the conference that voted on this. So
Oh, we need to have a talk.
yeah.
All right. Next one is, how many teeth does an adult human have?
I believe it's 28.
Wisdom teeth.
It would be after you get some pulled.
32? Now, is that including wisdom teeth or what?
Yes.
I'm assuming so, yes.
Okay, yeah.
And the final,
I got those pulled out right away. So
Yeah, me too.
just way too wise. I needed to get rid of some. The final one. This one's for all the marbles.
all
What
right,
tissues connect the muscles to the bones?
tendons.
And you won. You won this fantastic 10 question round of trivia. Unfortunately, we have no prize for you.
Oh. The last prize I got was a huge bottle of maple syrup. That was a great prize.
Oh,
Ooh, that would be a good prize.
we should look into that.
Yeah. PDS podcast branded maple syrup.
I like it.
That would go over well. Take some down to the States with us.
Yeah.
So, Dave, where can people find you on social media?
On Twitter, I'm at Dave_Sills, and all of my meteorology and professional stuff is on there. I do have a Facebook account as well, but that's mostly like family stuff. So you'd be very bored with that.
It's all about your boat.
It's all about the boat. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, actually Twitter, I find, as bad as it can be as far as being toxic and all that. I mean, it is the place to be for severe weather stuff, right?
It is.
All of the chasers are on there. All of the emergency managers are on there. Anybody who's important in weather business is on this thing. So, it's a great place to be and connect with other people.
Awesome. And you can follow us on Twitter at the PDS Podcast. You can follow Jordan at MB Storm Chasers on Facebook,
Hey, you
Twitter,
got it
and
right
Instagram. 12 episodes in, and I finally got it right. And you can follow me at 706 Photos everywhere. And last little bit, but if your podcast player lets you leave a review or subscribe, please subscribe to the show and leave the review, because that helps us get found by the search engines.
Did you want to mention that link too?
Oh yeah, we'll let Dave mention the link.
Sure.
Yeah, so to get at all of our great Northern Tornadoes Project content, and there's quite a bit of it, you can go to uwo.ca/ntp, and we've just started a website for the hail part, so that's uwo.ca/nhp, and that's under construction, but soon there'll be all kinds of content there too.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
And make sure you become a supporter on Facebook for the chance to win exclusive merch and prizes. And don't forget to head over to mbstorm.redbubble.com for your storm chase apparel needs. I also want to mention this is our last scheduled episode before Curtis and I head south for the month of May, which means the next time you'll hear from us will hopefully be live from Tornado Alley. We do have some plans to record some episodes in person with some guests while we're down there, so stay tuned for those, and we will resume our normal recording schedule after the chase season. And thank you again, Dave, for joining us tonight, and to everybody who's watching us live, I hope you have a great night.
Yeah, thanks, Dave.
Okay, guys. That was a blast, and safe chases.
Thank you.